I've been meaning to make this video for quite some time, and social anxiety is something that a lot of people should take very serious. Social anxiety is the number one killer of dreams. Most of the things that I never did that I'm actually picking up now and I'm starting to do was because of my social anxiety. And if you don't develop a good relationship with social anxiety, because one thing I want you guys to understand is you cannot destroy it, your life starts to get better. So for whoever's watching this video, whatever ambition you have, the goal, the thing you want to launch, the business you want to start, the career you want to get into, social anxiety, or should I say your relationship with it, will ultimately decide your fate. So I want people to understand that social media has had a really bad effect on most of us. If you really think about it, I lived a life where most of my teenage years I was outside. Bike rides, playing football. I was socializing with people outside because if you go back 10 years ago, so I finished school about 10, 11 years ago, right? And that's secondary school or high school. I finished 10, 11 years ago, and throughout that time, where bearing in mind you finish at 15, 16 years old, right? Throughout that time, there wasn't much social medias out there, right? Facebook, Instagram was in its infancy. So it didn't really and truly have an effect on me because my real life was my primary source of connection with humans, right? Then for me personally, it got bad or it started to get worse after lockdown. So if you really think about it, since 2020, things have really been starting to get bad. Because before then, even during that time, Instagram was still there. People used to watch memes on Instagram. If you know pages like I'm Just Bait and all of these pages. And at the same time, there was Twitter, but there was never short form content. I think short form content really started this wave of social anxiety because for the first time in your life, you're constantly stimulated. I've recorded myself one time and I'm not going to post it, but I had my phone. So I got two phones, right? I had one of my phones there and I was just recording myself kind of just being on my phone, right? And I remember when I got onto TikTok and I found an interesting video and then I started scrolling. You can literally see my face just like this for at least 4 or 5 minutes. If you do that every single day, you actually lose that ability to be human. So how are you going to go outside and actually socialize with people and develop a better relationship with social anxiety? So number one, I want you guys to understand this. Matter of fact, write this down. Social anxiety is a part of all of us and you are not unique. If you put me in a room today with 9 CEOs from the best companies on this planet Earth, I'm going to feel socially anxious. But my relationship with social anxiety is going to allow me to manage it much better than you. If you put me in front of hundreds or even thousands of people and tell me to give a speech, whether it's impromptu or I plan for it, I'm going to feel social anxiety. Social anxiety is just a natural response to uncomfortable situations. Whenever you put yourself in an uncomfortable environment, you're going to feel socially anxious because you don't know what the outcomes are going to be. You start developing what they call spotlight effect, which I'm going to talk about, right? And then you have negative feedback loops. And a lot of people have different relationships with social anxiety. Some of you guys watching this video might even feel socially anxious just going outside on a walk. Some of you guys might feel socially anxious when it comes to doing things like speaking to strangers on the street. Some of you guys might feel socially anxious when it comes to going to certain events will level up your life. So social anxiety is a spectrum, right? Someone might be very good at dealing with social anxiety. They might be here. Someone might not even be able to leave their home because every single thing makes them feel socially anxious. Even talking to their family, going downstairs makes them feel socially anxious. So what do we do about this, right? Because for a long time in my life, matter of fact, what I'm doing right now and the business that I've built, the career that I'm having, the country that I've moved to, because I no longer live in the UK, was kind of because I developed a better relationship with social anxiety. Otherwise, I would have never done those. But had I overcome this a very long time ago, when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I would have been way further ahead than I currently am. So this video can be a lesson, right? If you're currently 18, 19, 20, 21, or even if you're 30, it doesn't matter. I just want you to understand this. It is never too late. The first issue that I notice a lot of people have when it comes to social anxiety, and that is, again, putting yourself in an uncomfortable environment, is the spotlight effect. Let's explain what that is. You now go into an environment where you're speaking to a random person. Let's say you go to the gym. And you go to the gym for the first time, you feel socially anxious, right? Spotlight effect is we believe that in our life, we are the main character. Everyone's watching us. You now walk into the gym. You think everyone is staring at you. Oh, he's looking at me because I'm so skinny. She's looking at me because she thinks I'm so fat. You're on a machine and you're working out. You're thinking in your mind, everyone's looking at me because I'm not working out properly. All of these things don't exist if you really think about it. I've noticed this a very long time ago, right? Humans only care about themselves. And the only time they'll be willing to listen to you is if they feel like there's something in it for them. Unless they are your friend. I'm talking about just general human being outside. So when you're in the gym, someone might glance at you and notice that you're skinny, but in their head, it doesn't register or compute as anything. It doesn't compute as anything. They're just going to see it as, oh, he's just a skinny guy. Cool, let me continue doing what I'm doing. He's probably thinking about all the work he has to do, or he's probably thinking about the food that he has to eat, or, how he had an argument with his missus and how he has to make it up to her, right? Human beings don't think about you as much as you think they do. And when I started to realize that, it made me notice that in social environments, when you spend a lot of time in here and you think that everyone's staring at you, that is what creates the anxiety rather than just being across somebody. Because just as much as you feel socially anxious, the person that you're across might also be feeling socially anxious, but their relationship allows them to be present. Number two, before we get into the practical side, right? When you feel socially anxious in a public environment, let's say you spoke to somebody, you've watched this video and you follow the practical advice, and now you go outside, you speak to someone random, you go to the street, you ask someone for advice, or you go to an event, careers event or a networking event, and you go there and you essentially, want to make new friends or make new connections. The first problem you have is the spotlight effect. So you believe everyone's watching you. And because you believe everyone's watching you, now when you have conversations with anyone, you're spending so much time up here that you're no longer present. And I'll give you like an internal dialogue that happens. You're speaking to somebody and you're having a conversation, but in your head, you're telling yourself, oh, is this person thinking that I'm a socially awkward person? Because, people in the past have told me I was awkward. People in the past have told me that, I have an awkward body language. Do I look too skinny in this outfit? Is this person judging me because I look very skinny? Or is this person judging me because I look very fat? All of these internal dialogues, I want you to just pause and think for a second, right? What do you think is going to happen in real time? Because right now, this is in your body. Reality is out there. When you spend a lot of time in your mind, you end up freezing up in real life, and your physical manifestations show that of somebody that is very awkward and somebody that is very, embarrassed. So what does it look like? Closed body language, darting eyes. You constantly look around, You're looking at the person, but you're very blank. And I've noticed this in a lot of people. You try to maintain eye contact, but you've got a blank look in your face. When I'm talking to somebody and I'm really enjoying the conversation, right? This is how I speak to them. Imagine the camera's my friend. I'm like, oh, yeah. Bear in mind, I'm not saying anything. Just look at my facial languages, right? Obviously, maybe once or twice you look around, but you look at a person, yeah. And obviously, when you have things to add to the conversation, you'd say, oh, that's interesting, bro. Like, when did you do that? Oh, how did that happen? You see, my facial expressions are constantly changing. But when you are so in your mind and you're not present, this is what you look like. And guess what? What is the other person going to start thinking now? They're going to start looking at you as somebody that is socially awkward. They're going to think, why is this person being so awkward? But it didn't exist in real life. But because you were in your mind for so long, your body started to give that indication. And guess what? If now the person opposite you shows you that you are being awkward, because guess what happens in conversation now? If I'm talking to someone awkward, I'm very enthusiastic, right? You're the socially awkward person. I'm the one that's speaking to you. In the beginning, I don't know what you're like, so I'm having a conversation. Yeah, mate, so I went to Barcelona the other week and I spoke to some people and we had a good time and, XYZ was happening. And you on the other side are like this. Yeah. In my head, as the one that's speaking to you now, I'm thinking, this person's awkward. I don't feel like this person's listening to me. So my enthusiasm starts to go down. And when my enthusiasm starts to go down, guess what happens? My rate of speech starts to slow down. So I'm going to say, yeah. You know what? What was your name again, bro? Yeah, it was nice to meet you. I'm going to end the conversation abruptly. But what does that tell you? You're going to think, oh shit, I've done it again. Negative feedback loop, right? You now tell yourself, oh shit, I've done it again. I've made a complete mess of myself, right? I've done it again. And guess what? When you leave that social environment, you're going to go back home. And for some people, that was probably the first and last time they've had a social interaction. They've made their mind up. Then I thought to themselves, I tried, I was awkward, I froze up. I'm never going to do that again because that was a disgusting feeling. And in actuality, it isn't a nice feeling. Let's be honest, right? It isn't the best feeling in the world. But because you've been so much in your head, you spent so much time up here, and then you've completely made a mess out of it, and that person might have showed you an indication that you've made a mess, you now feel like there's no part for you to play anymore. You don't want anything to do with it. So now how do you overcome this? Because I want you guys to genuinely understand, there is nothing that is going to teach you better than real life reps. You can watch this video 1,000,001 times, but I can almost promise you, if you don't go out there and you actually try to do things that make you uncomfortable, and then you weather that storm, and you continually do it, you're never going to get better. So, social anxiety is all about dipping your toes in and feeling what the environment is like. Then, if you feel like it is okay, continue to dip your other toes in. Submerge half your feet, and then eventually your full foot. And I'm going to explain what that means, right? When it comes to social anxiety, you can't go head in first. You can't go all in, because your body, you need to understand the reason why social anxiety is a real thing is because of the physical manifestation. Your nervous system gets ramped up because when you're in an environment where you're very uncomfortable and you're not present, heart starts to beat very fast. Some people start sweating a lot, right? Some people start, biting themselves. They start fidgeting a lot. And when this happens and your nervous system is very jacked up, it is almost impossible to calm someone down. Imagine you got chased by somebody. You got chased by a dog, or you got chased by some people that wanted to hurt you. And then you've outrun them and they're no longer there anymore. And you come into my home now and I'm like, yo, calm down, calm down. How long does it take you to calm down? Probably 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. That is the exact same physical mechanism that happens in a situation that makes you feel socially anxious. You can't get someone to calm down all of a sudden. So if you go in head first and you think that you have to perform and do a magic trick to make everyone like you, nervous system is going to jack up and it's going to be very hard to bring down. So what do you do in this situation? The next time you go outside and you're putting yourself in a social environment, I just want you to just be present. And by being present, the easiest way to rewire it is, instead of asking yourself, how can I be comfortable in this environment? Why don't you ask yourself, if you're talking to somebody that is, how can I make that person feel comfortable? It's no longer about you anymore. You're thinking about that person. But if you are in an environment, let's say you're in an event, careers event, or someone invited you to a dinner, or you've gone to like a mosque event, I want you to understand this. You do not have to perform, rather just be present. A lot of people, when they go to these events, they think in their mind that they have to be a chatterbox, they have to show up to everybody, shake everyone's hand, speak to everyone, make everybody know your name. Do you know how much pressure that puts on you for somebody that's been in their home for like 2-3 weeks, right? It's very hard to maintain. So I want you to understand this. The next time you go out to a social environment, we are going to build what is called distress tolerance. Your ability to withstand uncomfortable situations is 100% dependent on your distress tolerance. And that is your ability to tolerate distress, right? How much stress can you handle in that given moment? In the beginning, it might be a bit difficult. If I invite my friend that doesn't really go out like that, and I invite him to like a dinner, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of, high level people there, and he's somebody that just lives at home, doesn't do much. The advice that I would give to him whilst we're driving there is, look, bro, nobody's expecting you to perform. Nobody's expecting you to talk to everyone there. When you're there, just be present. If a conversation naturally happens, have that conversation. Ask yourself, how can I make the other person feel comfortable rather than myself? Just be present. All of those negative thoughts that come into your mind are very natural. But remind yourself, somebody's talking to me. Try to ask questions. Try to maintain eye contact. Try to smile. But this is if a conversation naturally happens. If you're somebody that is socially awkward, you don't have to naturally seek conversations. You don't have to go out of your way to look for them, because that makes things harder for somebody that doesn't know how to communicate. Once you do this for the first time, and then the second time, and then the third time, and then the fourth time, over time you start to realize what? And I'm going to break down this mechanism. First few times, your nervous system is going to be jacked up. But as soon as you start building distress tolerance, which means you are able to realize that these environments no longer make me feel anxious and I feel safe here, As your distress tolerance increases, your nervous system slowly starts to deregulate, or it slowly starts to come down from being completely jacked up. And then what ends up happening is, over time, you start to realize this is not that bad. I don't feel that anxious no more. I don't feel like my heart is beating a lot anymore. I don't feel like, everybody's staring at me because I feel comfortable. That's why whenever I go to these environments, and if I've never been to a situation, like for example, I started going to networking events about a year ago, right? And before I went to these networking events, I tried to tell myself, you have to look the sharpest, you have to talk to everybody, you have to have your chest pumped out, you have to make sure that, you look like a man. But when I realized that I'm trying to perform, it put a lot more stress on me. But when I realized that I can go there and just be myself, be present, and just take in the environment, it actually made me more comfortable. And the more comfortable you become, the natural version of you comes out. You no longer feel like you have to perform. So I want to wrap up this video with this point, right? Number one, you are not unique with social anxiety. Social anxiety is a part of all of us. And social anxiety is just your body and your mind responding to uncomfortable situations. How you deal with uncomfortable situations depends on the level of distress tolerance that you've built. How do you build distress tolerance? When you go to these environments, do not think to yourself that you have to perform, rather just be present. How do you be present? Think about how can you make other people comfortable if a conversation arises. Otherwise, just be in your element. Smile, have an open body language. And one thing that I want people to understand is the world revolves around energy. Everything in this world is energy. If somebody has a very good energy, meaning that they're smiling, they've got open body language, you would end up realizing that as a natural byproduct, people would approach you. People would come up to you. Oh, where are you from? What are you doing here? What brings you here? And this is your moment to shine. But don't feel like you have to perform. Just give a simple answer. I'm from London. What about yourself? Remember, in your mind, don't think about how to make yourself comfortable. Think about how you can make that person comfortable, right? Be very attentive. Ask questions. Smile. Keep a decent eye contact with them. And I could almost promise you, if you do this and you acknowledge that you don't have to perform, rather be present, and you maintain this and you stay in these environments long enough, build up that distress tolerance, give it 3 to 6 months, and I can promise you, if the right person takes this advice, social anxiety is going to be something that you, easy, baby food. Now, in my confident self, I've got big projects coming out soon, right? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, shit, it might go bad, all of these overthinking that we do, right? Or what if I don't perform? What if people see me as a fraud? Don't care. And I'm going to make a separate video on this, but you need to understand that nervousness and excitement are the exact same thing in terms of bodily manifestations. The only difference is the way you view it. What is your relationship with it? So to wrap this video up, I want you to implement this. Write it down from now. What are the common environments that scare you the most? And how can you integrate yourself in these environments without feeling like you have to perform? How can I just be present? Nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares about you. And I want you to take in this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one, boys.